Hello, and welcome to the Power Your Advice podcast. The Power Your Advice podcast is designed to bring financial advisors new ideas, why those ideas should be considered, and how to implement them into your business. This podcast is brought to you by Advisorpedia, the best place advisors come to grow their minds and businesses. This is your host, Doug Heikkinen, and I'm really looking forward to our guest today, who is Ben Way. Ben is a serial entrepreneur, a best-selling author, and known for his appearances on Secret Millionaire, The Startup Kids, and as a cast member on Startups Silicon Valley. Ben has also become an expert in the cryptocurrency space. His more recent startup is a company called TokenMaker. It's a platform where users can create tokens and NFTs with zero code experience. Wow. Welcome, Ben.
It's a pleasure. Thank you.
We've all seen NFTs in the news recently. It seems like this space throws something new at us all the time. Can you please explain to me what an NFT is and how it works?
Absolutely. It has definitely gone a bit crazy. You know, the thing about NFTs is they always mirror the real world. The crypto space always mirrors the real world in a certain respect. And so you got kind of things like Bitcoin in the traditional crypto world, which mirror kind of fiat and currency. And then you got NFTs, which technically mean something called a non-fungible token, which means that one cannot be exchanged for another. It's something unique. And the easiest way to describe an NFT is probably to think about it as a unique asset, a piece of art, a piece of music, but it's inherently unique and has a specific value attached to it based upon what the market's prepared to pay for it. Does that make any sense to you?
It makes a little bit of sense, and it's really interesting, and there's so many skeptics out there. Let's talk about some of the issues and challenges with investing in NFTs. For example, how do you know what you're buying is legitimate? I mean, it's a piece of art, and who made the price on that?
Unfortunately, it's a bit of a wild west right now. You know, the most important thing I would say is a bit like life is buyer beware. There is no policing to this right now, and there will be legislation that comes in and tries to protect people. But the reality is, it's the wild west, and at this point in time, and you know, it really is down to the buyer to kick the tires on whatever they're purchasing, and a number of people will lose out and be scammed because of it. That's just unfortunately the reality of life. People take advantage of any new system. So it's whether, what I always say about investing is you should never invest, you should never invest more than you can afford to lose. And the way I've always invested in my life is that while I always hope for a significant return, I never invest $1 more than I can afford to walk away from.
Yeah. So is this something that advisors should consider for their clients, or just understanding more about it so they can explain it to clients, or both?
Yeah, I think, I would say it's useful for financial advisors to understand. I suspect they will have some kind of client interaction in this space at some point in the relatively near future, because it is a point of interest, and it's kind of interesting for financial advisors because it's kind of starting to blur the line between kind of becoming becoming an art dealer and a financial advisor, right? It's really starting to, starting to get into this kind of interesting gray area. And I think what I would say is that if you're advising your clients, is you're spreading, what you're doing with their portfolio is effectively spreading their risk, right? They're going to have some low risk assets, they're going to have some medium risk assets, and they're going to have some very high risk assets. And I would say that NFTs are pretty much the highest risk category you can get into. So depending on their client's appetite for very high risk, very high reward opportunities, that's the way it should be presented. Unless you have some kind of much deeper knowledge or deeper access to the NFT network that allows you to kick the tires in a way that most people can't.
Yeah, we know ultra wealthy millennials are spending big on art. So, and I'm really interested from a music standpoint of all the people who are creating music and not getting paid anymore. What other industries do you think will leverage NFTs, especially where the wealthy are spending their time?
Yeah, and this kind of comes into kind of market development. We are just seeing the very peak of an iceberg, as it were, in the water, and kind of art and music and the creative arts are kind of the low hanging fruit of what NFTs are capable of. I think as you just like crypto has started to do, what you're going to see is all these edge cases of products and utilizations and markets, which in a sense are going to be far more valuable over the long term than just these very high peaks and troughs that we're seeing in the NFT space. So the way we're seeing, we're looking at TokenMaker, we've always wanted to be the picks and shovels of this industry, right? We're not interested really in being building a platform to sell art. What we want to do is be the picks and shovels that allow somebody else to build that platform, and that's kind of our kind of conceptual kind of way we're running the business. But we're looking at all these kind of edge cases. I mean, we've had some incredible ones. Everything from local government asset management to ticket sales, ticketing platforms, to sports. I mean, it's just like crypto. At the beginning where everyone's naysaying and it's like, oh, it's not going to change anything, and now really it is changing something. It's a bit like NFTs. We're right. We're at kind of day one of the NFT space. I mean, I was very lucky back in the day, 2003, to be involved in Trade Hill, which was the first ever Bitcoin exchange, and the FBI shut us down because it was too scary. But if Trade Hill had survived, I'd be sitting on $1 billion. And the NFT space is exactly the same. It's right at the beginning. There's a lot of mess. There's no regulation. But over time, over the next 5 years, it will come into focus and it will be a more normalized asset class.
How at the beginning are we? Because it seems to me like I've just started to see articles in the last 2 months, but it's more than just 2 months old.
Yeah, I mean, the NFTs have been around for years, but just like crypto, it wasn't until it became accessible to the population at large when it hits this kind of conscious tipping point where it suddenly enters the mind of the general population as an opportunity. And I think we saw that at the kind of major price points of Bitcoin, kind of around $100, and then $1,000, and then $10,000, and now $50,000. It's the same with NFTs, and NFTs will have there's no doubt there's going to be an NFT crash, right? You're going to have people piling on, people are going to get ripped off, and then people are going to be like, fuck this shit, and let's do that. That this isn't what's supposed to happen, and then people are going to solve for those problems and build solutions, and then people will come back and go, oh, actually this is a really interesting model, let's try this again. So nothing is static and nothing is predictable in a new market or new technology. So it's very much at the beginning. It's total wild west right now, which is why people can turn $1 into $1 million, but people can also lose $1 million. So it works both ways.
There wasn't often a sheriff in the wild west, and many of our listeners are wondering if NFTs are regulated, and if they're not, do you see them being regulated in the near future?
I don't think there will be. I mean, one thing we know about governmental agencies is they're very slow to react. There's a beautiful saying, I can't remember exactly what it is, but it's kind of like the law is slow, but it always comes, right? It's just a very slow mechanism, but ultimately it will catch up with whatever you're doing. So, I think over time it will be regulated, and in a sense, it needs the freedom to be unregulated to see where the sand settles, as it were. but it will end up being regulated. But it is right now from an advisory point of view, it's an incredibly high risk asset. And if you're doing 100 NFT deals, you're going to get burnt on a good percentage of them.
How about safety? We know everything can get hacked these days. This is no different, right?
Yeah, it's one of the problems we're trying to solve in TokenMaker. Both there's kind of two aspects to that. There's the actual security of like, okay, you own this thing, and that's a kind of a somewhat basic thing in the sense of how do you protect your data? How do you should protect your NFT passwords and access just like you would your bank account, right? The difference being is if you lose an NFT, nobody's going to refund you, right? If the platform screws up and gives your password away and you lose your NFT, nobody's going to refund you for that. So be responsible with your NFTs. It's really for you to research how to protect them. Maybe even protect the physical asset offline. It's quite a complex area of security. And then there's the other side. So, that's the kind of owning the asset side of things. But then there's the security of is the thing you're purchasing the real thing that you wanted to purchase? And this is a real challenge in the marketplace right now, is because you can buy something that actually may not end up having the real product at the end once you access it. So it's like a bait and switch type activity. And this is one problem we are trying to solve at TokenMaker, is how to make sure people can't do bait and switch. And we're building some pretty sophisticated technology, which, without getting too complex, is to do with hashing and some artificial intelligence regression technology, so that a normal user can check, oh yeah, I paid $1 million for that. Oh yes, I've got what I'm supposed to get. Right now, that's not the case. It's basically, and I can't quite believe that the market is what it is today, because it's basically on trust between the buyer and seller. And as we all know, when something is based on trust in the marketplace, there are bad actors that will take advantage of that.
So there's tons of challenges. They're not regulated. They can be hacked. You have tons of time that you can spend doing anything in this industry or other industries. So why this, and why do you see a strong future?
Yeah, it may sound totally counterintuitive that I'm highlighting all these issues, but it's like any other value creation, right? It's it's the start of the market. So great fortunes can be made if you know what you're doing, right? And while it is the Wild West, it will rapidly transform. It will be regulated, and in 5 to 10 years, what you have is a platform that can digitally represent the value of work created. And that, on a fundamental level, to be able to give value to the creator of anything directly without having to go through these media intermediary people, it makes the whole system more efficient. Imagine being Sotheby's right now, or a record label, or a film studio. Imagine that all gets cut out, and instead of everyone taking their little piece of the pie and leaving that creator with 1/100th of what they deserve, the person consuming the content is paying 100% to the creator. And that inefficiency is why NFT is interesting, just like anything else in the world, just like Bitcoin, right? Why is Bitcoin interesting? Because it cuts out the intermediaries. That's the value creation. It's efficiency. Efficiency reduces the amount of energy required to do the transaction, and therefore increases its value inherently. And that's what the internet did. That's what it's what every major technological revolution has done, is just made something a lot more efficient, cut out the intermediaries, and that's what we're talking about here, and that's why it's interesting.
I also see a number of major companies coming after you with pitchforks.
Well, yeah, I mean, yeah, but I mean, it's like Bitcoin. I mean, it's not, you can't, it's like trying to stop the internet, right? I sat down with 15 years ago, I sat down with the board of, I think it was Sony Records, or one of the record labels, because I developed an anti-piracy technology to stop music getting shared on the internet, which was a big problem at that point, because they hadn't. I remember sitting down with the execs of Sony or one of these other music labels, and literally them telling me that in a few years, nobody's going to want to have digital music. They're going to all go back to CDs and records. And you're just like, are you kidding me? And they lost billions of dollars. So what I would say to any big corporation out there who's like, we need to fight against this, no, you need to be the first ones to adopt this so you can get that value creation early and transform your business. One thing we know about human endeavor and human innovation is you can't stop progress. You can't stop progress. So you can either go with the flow, or you can try and slow it down slightly, and maybe you'll slow it down by 1 or 2%, but the ultimate outcome will always be the same.
I find this also fascinating because it's non-traditional. I just listened to a podcast from the CEO of Netflix and that journey. So how did you read the tea leaves and become an evangelist for this emerging asset class?
Well, my biggest failure in life has always been that I've always been about 10 years to ahead of the curve. So, I spend my time thinking about the future constantly, predicting trends, trying to see where things are moving, what the ultimate journey for our society, for our planet, and beyond is. And so I just see these very distinct trends, and everything is going to be digital, everything's going to be on demand, everything. There's going to be the inefficiencies in our society today. There are literally millions of technologies being built today to reduce those inefficiencies down to zero. And we are an incredibly inefficient society right now. We think we're efficient because we've got nothing to compare ourselves to, just like we think we're the most intelligent species on this planet because we have nothing to compare ourselves to. But we are an incredibly flawed species that is inherently inefficient. And the whole point of technology, the whole point of AI, and the whole point of all of this is to rebalance those inefficiencies and reduce them so we can become the species we deserve to be, and we can become this, we can move into our next phase of existence on a much faster and more efficient level. That's what this is all about. It's just efficiency. It's energy. At the end of the day, it's all energy. It's just increasing the efficiency of energy that runs through the system.
I'm really interested in that, because if you take away all those inefficiencies and somebody's doing them for us, what are we going to become? I have no idea. Do you?
Well, that is the kind of metaphysical question. Now, what I would say is my hope. I'm an eternal optimist. There's kind of two ways I look at it. One, technology could free us and bring in a period of renaissance that we haven't seen in generations, and allow pure creativity of humans to grow, and this vision we have for ourselves of being able to live a life filled with pure creativity and joy and happiness. That's one possibility. Technology could free us. That another possibility, because I do a lot in artificial intelligence and robotics. I ultimately believe, and I've written a book to this effect, is that at some point we will generate a artificial consciousness on Earth which is beyond our own. And my belief is that inherently the universe is a positive force, and so my belief, my best hope, as I describe it, is that at some point this artificial consciousness will probably take over, because we're a pretty flawed species. I'm not quite sure we can look after ourselves, and we become like well looked after pets, and you know we have a beautiful life, and we're not allowed to touch anything too complicated. That's kind of the kind of joking way I look at it, if that makes any sense at all.
We become star people.
Yeah, something like that. Something you know, there's an inflection point coming. There's no doubt. We all feel it inherently deep down. There's this society, the way we're working right now, cannot continue. There is a deeper inflection point coming, and it feels like it's coming up fast. There was a beautiful article I read yesterday from one of the Google, I think it was a Google engineer. I'll try and send that to you so you can post it in the comments or something. But it's one of the most interesting articles about the acceleration of innovation, and how that basically every 10 years we go forward, the pace of innovation doubles. So it's an exponential doubling. So in 40 years, you know, what is a month's innovation today will be like a day's innovation. Right, so it becomes this kind of exponential, kind of consolidated growth pattern. It's going to be insane.
Ben, this has been absolutely fascinating. We really appreciate you joining us. If people want to learn more about NFTs and what you're up to, where should they go?
Just go to tokenmaker.org. We're here. We're very accessible. If you're interested in any part of it, feel free to contact me directly. You know, I'm not that hard to find, and it was great connecting with you and sharing my views.
Thank you very much. For everybody at Advisorpedia, our producer, Jakey Beard, and the Power Your Advice podcast team, this is Doug Heikkinen.